Saturday morning out there to you all. Hope you're having a fantastic start to your weekend. Hope you're excited about a jam-packed slate of college football today. It is jam-packed. Welcome into the first Barking Browns draft edition of the year as me and Bill migrate the show over here. We are your hosts. I'm Jacob. That's Bill Sparks. We have got a awesome show for you today. We're going to update. And it's kind of dangerous, but we're going to do our top 10 quarterbacks in this class right before a lot of them have big games that could potentially change our minds. So we're going to see. Bill, how you doing, brother?
Brother, I'm doing good. We had some good games last night, including, Virginia taking Florida State down to the wire, everybody disputing what's a catch, where does the ball move. Let me just say this. The ACC got it right. The fact they show inside the replay booth of everything that's going on and how they're talking through that decision, I need more. Give me more. Give me the Big Ten, the SEC, all of it.
Yes.
And then, we get, a Big 12 matchup between Sam Leavitt and Josh Hoover where, listen, I haven't been the biggest Hoover guy. And last night didn't really change my mind. But then, Jordan Tyson just erupts for 126 yards like it's another day at the office for him.
Which it is for Jordan Tyson. Yeah. Let's just be clear. Let's be clear about our wide receiver, or at least my wide receiver one.
You're one, my three, yeah.
Yeah, we talked about this before. This wide receiver class is starting through the first month of the season. It looks a lot better than we thought coming out of summer. So, hey guys, if you're checking us out on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, hit that little bell so you know every time we go live. We got all kinds of awesome content coming from you. A couple draft shows a week, couple Brown shows. We do some exclusive Brown shows too, obviously. So if you want to check those out, you can check us out on TikTok at the Barking Browns. We do some exclusive stuff over there, some betting content, some, just a more different shorter content if you want to take that on. So make sure you check that out. So we're going to do it. We're going to dive into our top 10 quarterbacks a month into the season. Before we do that, one thing that I wanted to talk about was it's just so funny how drastically this changes because I'm looking at I have your list up right now. I'll share my screen for everybody to see my list and Bill's list. But actually I'll look at mine. And I've got I have two names that weren't in the top 10 at all coming out of the summer. Yep. My quarterback one is still in the top. My quarterback 1 and 2 have fallen a little bit. My quarterback 5 was not on my list at all. I didn't watch him at all. And we'll talk about that as we go through the list. My quarterback 3 is fallen to 10. So there's a lot of big changes. Do you feel that way about kind of your list coming out of summer versus what it looks like now 4 games into the year?
Absolutely. I mean, there were 3 on my list that were not on my top 10 coming in. And then my top 3 has been completely shuffled. My number 1 was number 3. My number 3 was number 1. My number 4 is still number 4, but then there's 2 more that have popped up. I mean, for me, I was never high on 2 of these guys coming in that have, one has a very major test in a whiteout situation today. Spoiler, never really high on him. And then obviously another signal caller in the ACC that we'll talk about today, I was never really high on. I compared him to the BYU version of Zach Wilson. And those 2 guys have kind of slid back. But then also you have other guys that we'll get into without spoiling too much that, I call it a face in a new place, right? One goes from the ACC to the Big Ten, one goes from the SEC to the ACC, and they look like new guys. And then, there's some guys that just popped up that, we heard whispers, right? When you're all the way up in the Pacific Northwest and then you go to SEC country and, obviously has shown out and shown up, but now has the injury, talking about, of course, John Moneyline Mateer. Couldn't dance around enough names at that point. But, another guy that he was on my board, right? But he was a round 4 or 5 guy that you wanted to see him translate, and he's done well so far.
Yeah, I would say so. Somebody asked me last night, and I think this is always an important question when it comes to quarterbacks. When it comes to quarterbacks in the draft, somebody asked me like, "Do you think five? Is it crazy to say 5 or 6 of these guys go in the first?" Like this, somebody DM'd me on Twitter, and I said, I can't commit to that many right now
Yeah.
on September 27th. But if you told me, based on what I have seen from some of these quarterbacks, if you told me we got to 5 in April, I could see it.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm there, not quite there yet, but I'd say 4. I'd say 3 or 4. I'm probably feeling good about 3 or 4 of them, and one of them would still be a swing on upside. But we're
Yep.
gonna get the rest of the year potentially to see this cat play out. But so I will say for those quarterback needy teams, especially we cater a little bit more to Browns fans around this podcast, and there are some guys that I think are going to be answers. So
Yes.
let's
I would agree with you. Yeah, I would agree with you in that aspect. I think right now I have 2 bona fide first round grades, and then the next 4 I think could all go at some point between pick 33 and pick 65.
yeah.
And honestly, if you told me all 4 went first round, I would believe it. If you told me all 4 either went back to school or went second round, I'd believe it. They're that kind of volatility there.
Yeah, I was gonna say we'll even touch on that with some of these guys that they're probably guys that need to go back to school and that sort of thing. So let's launch into it. We had a heck of a time. We were gonna put together some PowerPoint presentations so that we would just go like I'd click 10, only 10 would show up, and then only 9 would show up, and we just are not that tech savvy. So if anybody's out there that
No.
is that tech savvy that wants to help us, let us know. But we did
Yes.
create graphics. So we've got graphics. We're going to with the entire list. So Bill, real quick, what we'll do here is I'm going to put Bill's list on the screen. He's going to read it 10-1. Then I'll put mine on the screen 10-1. And then me and Bill will go back and forth talking about some of those guys. Casey, not it. Yeah. But don't worry, Casey is very talented in making music. He's going to make a badass intro for this show as well. For
Love it.
so we're going. So, all right. Without further ado, let's get. And of course, some of you guys are listening on Spotify and Apple and things like that. So we are going to read through the list and stuff. You won't be able to see it, so I apologize for that. But we're going to make it pretty listener friendly on that side of things.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously, starting at number 10, you have Drew Aller from Penn State. Number 9, Jaden Mayava from USC. Number 8, Ty Simpson from Alabama. Number 7, Talon Green from Arkansas. Number 6, John Moneyline Mateer from Oklahoma. Number 5 is Dante Moore from Oregon. Number 4 is Garrett the Nuss Bus Nussmeyer from LSU. Number 3 is Lenoris Sellers from South Carolina. Number 2 is Aiden Childs from Michigan State. And number 1 is the Cuban Missile Crisis himself, Fernando Mendoza from Indiana.
Before I show my list, we have, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5 guys. Yes, 5 guys in the exact same spot. Do you want to try to guess who those guys are? Or at least guess a couple.
I'm going to go Mendoza,
Okay.
Lenoris, Nuss.
Those are all correct so far, yeah.
Mendoza, Lenoris, Nuss, Mayava.
Oh, yeah, I texted you last night. I did tell you that.
Yeah, we talked about Mayava. I had the spoiler. Yep. I'm going to go Talon Green as the 5th one. We have the same.
No, actually. So here we go. Oh. Here I am. Here's my list for the 2026 quarterback class here. The answer is Dante Moore was the other one for me. So I got Cade Klubnik at Clemson at number 10. He's holding on for dear life. He was my quarterback 3 going into this year, and it's been a rough go for Cade Klubnik, but he's holding on for dear life just because I liked him as much as I did going into the year. Number 9, I got Jaden Mayava from USC. Number 8, Carson Beck from Miami. I have Drew Aller just a little bit higher than you do at number 7 and from Penn State, but would consider putting him lower, and we'll get into that in a second. I got Aiden Childs from Michigan State at 6, Dante Moore from Oregon at 5, Garrett Nussmeier from LSU at 4. Lenore Sellers from South Carolina at number 3, the guy that has the highest ceiling of anybody in this class, and I don't even think it's anywhere close, to be honest.
It's not close, no.
Number 2, I got John Mateer from Oklahoma. Of course, going to miss some time with the injury that could potentially lead to him going back to school, depending on how it goes. And then Fernando Mendoza is my quarterback 1. I flirted with John Mateer as my quarterback 1, but especially after the injury, I decided to go with Mendoza, and we'll get into that. So that is my stuff. That's my list. So we'll go back to Bill's list. Yeah. And let's start with Drew Aller.
Yeah.
Well, for you, it's number 10, so it's the easiest place to go. And I had him at number 7, and I feel like we see him the exact same way. So there's a lot of people that are very high on Drew Aller still throughout this year. I had him 4 going into the year just because I thought there were improvements in 2024. Like, I thought he took steps forward. I thought he looked more accurate. The consistency was still a major problem for him last year, but I did think his accuracy was better in 2024 than it had been the previous year. And I did think in some of those games he looked, so not in big games because he continues to just be a disaster in big games, but I just thought that overall his pocket presence was better in 2024. We get to 2025 and it looks exactly like 2024. I expected more steps forward like he had last year. He didn't take a single one. So he drops the 7 for me and 10 for you. So I'll kick it to you to talk about Drew Aller.
Yeah, listen, with the big thing with Drew Aller for me is athletically, he's got some movement ability and he's got a big arm, but the problem is just the mechanics are just a dumpster fire. And I hate being that critical just kicking off, but especially under duress, his feet don't plant and his feet don't point to where the ball needs to go, and it just leads to sporadic accuracy, especially over the middle of the field. And the problem with that is if you're playing teams like playing Oregon, where they have high-level talent, that's acceptable. You play Ohio State, high-level defense, acceptable. When you're playing FIU and Villanova, a lot of people don't evaluate those types of cupcake games. I do. Right. I want to see, are you in control of the offense? Does everything look surgically proficient? Like Fernando Mendoza against Indiana State, does it look like that? When you watch Drew Aller's tape against FIU and Villanova, 55% completion percentage against Villanova for 200 yards and a touchdown, 57% completion percentage for 200 yards against FIU. Like, if you're playing that way against that tier of talent and your mechanics are leading to sporadic accuracy, how can I expect you to handle a level up in competition like against Oregon today, and then another level up when you get to the NFL level? I've talked about it a lot. Drew Aller has had the same quarterback coach since the 9th grade in terms of coaching his private mechanics, and they still look like this. It's simple things. It's very easy things. There's a lot of off-platform throws that causes passes to sail over receivers' heads or land at their feet. And at a certain point, you have to figure that out. Whether that's a new quarterback coach, whether that's whatever you were doing before isn't working and you need to adjust some things. But he's got every tool in the toolbox, and it's why he's still in the top 10, because he has the big arm. He has the athletic ability. He has the ability to rifle the ball into very tight windows. But the problem is all the other little things that you want a franchise signal caller to do, he struggles with. And that's why he sits at 10 for me.
Yeah, so the thing for me, and I've got him at 7, and the reason he's still at 7, you touched on it, it's the tools. Like, I can still say, like, man, that you got a big arm, like, and you got prototypical size. You've got enough athleticism to extend the play. Not really going to, like, carve people up with your legs, but, you can run in a few touchdowns in the red zone, 3rd and goal from the 6, you could run that in. Like, he's got that level of athleticism if things open up and stuff. So I look at it and I'm like, and I think the same thing kind of you talked about the mechanics and how bad they are and how he's had the same coaching. There's going to be an NFL team that says, yeah, but we're different, right? Yeah. Like, we're different. Like, we can do this. So that's why he's still at 7 because of that. But the one knock on Aller for me that is concerning is we talk about how big his arm is. he's not a good deep ball thrower. Like
No.
for a dude with a cannon on his arm, on his right shoulder, he just doesn't throw the ball deep very well. So it's like
No.
he can throw outbreaking routes and stuff like that, like speed outs and things because he can really drive it to the sideline. But like when he's going deep down the field, it's like I don't love what he does in those situations. And I heard Todd McShay this week talk about it. I just had it and I forgot exactly how he said. I forgot how he said it. Now I can't. I'll come back to it if I can remember. I was just listening to him talk about it last night.
Yep.
Todd McShay said one thing he really struggles with, especially down the field, is receivers that are moving away from him. And I thought that's a great point. Corner
routes, post routes.
Yep. If you're going across the field away from him, now if you're coming across the field towards him, like a backside dig and things like that, he can hit that. But if you are running away from him, you are
struggling.
Nick's joined us from our account, from the Barking Browns account here. Once talks about Fernando Mendoza and Brown and Orange. I would love that. He said this list tells him which games he needs to watch for that. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's part of why we're doing this early in the day.
Yes.
So that's where I'm at with Drew Aller. Let's kick to Cade Klubnik because he's on my list. He's not on your list.
Nope.
It's been bad. There have been moments. I thought week 1 against LSU, who was a very good defense, I thought you saw flashes from Cade, but it looked like he was overwhelmed. He has continued to look overwhelmed all year. And just like with Drew Aller, I hold on to Cade Klubnik because of the tools. He's a good athlete. I think he's got a good arm. I have seen him process well. At the end of 2024, he was looking really good, especially from a processing standpoint. But he just doesn't look comfortable in the pocket. He's got 4 returning starters on the offensive line. Has that offensive line been as good as we thought it was going to be? Not necessarily. There have been some issues with that. But with Klubnik, it just looks like a guy that's completely overwhelmed. And they were supposed to be national championship contenders, and I'm not sure they are right now. And he's the quarterback driving that bus. And so for me, he falls all the way down to 10, but he's got the tools that make you want to be like, if it's the 4th or 5th round and Cade Klubnik sitting there and you're like, especially if you've got like a veteran, like an older veteran on your team and you want to sit him behind there, like you may be worth taking a shot at that. But for me this year, Cade Klubnik is just, he's tumbled from 3 to 10.
Yeah, and he didn't make my list. He had to cut it off at 10. He's number 11. Him and Aller are fighting for that 10th spot week to week. And it's because the big thing with Cade Klubnik is you look at, again, we talked about it with Drew Aller. We're going to talk about it with Cade, the level of competition, right? He goes into LSU, hangs a 50% completion percentage, plays on the road in Atlanta at Georgia Tech, 57% completion percentage, looks flustered at points. And you look, one of the biggest things that I look at on the tape is how does a quarterback look comfortable in chaos is my biggest thing, is comfortability in chaos. Because in the NFL, you're not going to have 5 All-Americans on your offensive line. You're not going to have 3 All-Americans on an offensive line. You're going to deal with a Cleveland Browns type of offensive line where you have to replace 5 starters because of age or cost. So you have to be comfortable in chaos. And for me, Cade Klubnik hasn't been. You look at that LSU defense and those guys like Harold Perkins just getting after him. You look at Georgia Tech, how they were able to pressure him early. I mean, you even look at Syracuse, and Syracuse probably is arguably his best game, but still 60% completion percentage on 61 dropbacks and 61 attempts. That is mind-numbingly crazy for me. And I said coming into the season, my biggest concerns with him was developing consistency in terms of his primary read. So when that primary read Antonio Williams is covered, move off of it. He doesn't. He sits there. We just talked about it with Drew Aller. He doesn't do well with players running away from him. Cade's have that same issue. He has to see it before he rips it. And that's something that in the NFL is not going to work because you're never going to see it. so you're going to hold on to the ball forever. And you know, that, and then when he's under pressure, it is absolutely mind-blowing how much it just falls apart. When he's pressured, and you and I talked about it before the season kicked off, I said, when you corner him, he's like a raccoon trying to corner in a dumpster. He scrambles, he panics, he goes off the rails, the ball just gets thrown in every which way. It's a hot potato. And we've seen it. We saw it against Georgia Tech. We saw it against Troy. We saw it against LSU. You know, Cade Klubnik has thrown an interception in every single game this season. So he's got 4 this season. He had 6 all of last year. He had 9 the year before. For me, I would not take Cade Klubnik before round 5 right now because, again, just like Drew Aller, there are some traits, and you talked about him, you hit on him. There's arm talent. There's a dynamic athlete, probably one of the most dynamic quarterbacks that we talk about today. But there's a lot of things that you have to check in order to be a franchise NFL quarterback. And right now, I don't think he checks enough of those boxes.
All right, let's go into a guy that we both have here at number 9. Just tell me a little bit about what's impressed you from Jaden Mayava, from USC, who is probably the 12 o'clock game that I'm going to watch live, at least, I think is kind of the plan. Yes. Because in USC, I think they're in my opinion, a legit playoff contender. Like I think that's pretty good, and he's got a great wide receiver in Mekhi Lemon. But Jaden Mayava is this guy who a couple of years ago played for UCLA. Had I think 5 starts for UCLA, and it was, I went back and looked at some of the data and stuff from that. And I watched like one game. It was not great.
Yeah. So you're thinking Dante Moore. Moore was at UCLA and then transferred to Oregon, but Mayava was at UNLV and transferred to USC. But in all fairness, his UNLV tape wasn't great either. But Mayava, Mayava was not on the list coming into this season in terms of a draftable prospect because I wanted to see more. I wanted to see, number one, I wanted to see if Lincoln Riley could get him up and going. But this guy, we just talked about Drew Aller's deep ball and how it looks rough. Mayava's deep ball is just beautiful. I mean, there are rainbow shots. There are frozen ropes. There are dropping into buckets 40 yards downfield. Like, it is nothing. Like you're throwing a paper ball into a wastebasket at the office. Jaden Mayava's dropping a 40-yard bomb. Probably one of the quickest releases in this class in terms of getting that ball out. I call it, and I credit Tom McShay for this, I call it load to arrival. So from the moment you wind up and the moment that ball pops out of your hands, it's just quick. The other thing is that he's got a really good pocket presence about him and knows where to go with the ball, sliding, climbing, dropping back, side to side, shuffling, and keeping his eyes upfield. As a young quarterback, that's something you can't teach. But the big issue is in the intermediate stuff, so the 10 to 20-yard stuff. A lot of his stuff lacks some serious consistency. I've seen a lot of his passes sail high, especially on crossing routes. Mm-hmm. And in the NFL, that's an interception. That's a pick 6. Every time. But, I mean, the good thing is when you watch him play against the weaker teams, Missouri State, Georgia Southern, Purdue, he looks in command. He looks in control. And for me, I don't have a first-round grade on him. I don't think he gets into the first round. But if you told me that the Browns didn't take a quarterback in the first round, Mayava would be that guy. Yeah. Because I see a lot of Carson Palmer in his game.
I love his efficiency.
Yes.
Like straight up. And I'm going to say that with a few more of these quarterbacks on the list, is that the efficiency, I don't know what it is about me, but we evolve. I know you probably have a few things you could point to in terms of scouting, but we evolve as NFL draft scouts and draft guys on what we gravitate to based on trends and where we're right and where we're wrong in previous years. I really gravitate towards guys that are incredibly efficient and in control of the offense, and that's who I think Mayava is. He is the engine that helps that you. Don't get me wrong, Mekhi Lemon. Oh, I can't think of. You just said it. What's the other wide receiver's name?
Jacoby Lane.
Jacoby Lane. Two great wide receivers. Don't get me wrong, but Jaden Mayava, I think, is the engine that drives that train, like that USC offense. So. Yeah, I have him at 9 as well. So I'm really glad that we snuck. I thought I was going to sneak him in there, and I told you this last night. I thought I was going to sneak him in there, and that you weren't going to have him on your list. And then you ended up having him at the exact same spot I had him. I was like, this is
yes. And like I said, he wasn't on my board coming out of summer scouting because I was like, you looked at last season, 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. You needed to see more from Mayaba, and I've seen it. And right now, if you told me right now that by the end of next month he's in the top 5, listen, he's climbing because, like you talked about being efficient. One of the things that I've gravitated towards, especially at quarterbacks, is how well do they command an offense when there's, I call it consistency and chaos. And then how do you look against lesser talent? Yeah. That's why Aller's dropping. It's why Mayaba's rising. If you look like a surgeon against a lesser talent, then I know when the competition steps up, you're going to rise with it.
Yeah, you've got to dump. That's part of the thing that I talked about with Mendoza before. And it was like, yeah, when he tore up Indiana State, I'm like, here's the thing. I want that. I need you to do that. I need you to go out and do that. And I know it's like, you don't want to put too much weight on some of those games, but those games should still turn out like that. Like they should still turn out like that. So
bingo.
That's important. I'm going to go to my number 8. We'll go to your number 8 in a second, just because they are different and they are guys that are not on each of our lists. Our 8s are not on the other person's list. I got Carson Beck from Miami. The 2025 version of Carson Beck, it hasn't been perfect. There have been moments where he was just dinking and dunking and taking a lot of short passes and stuff. Through his first 2 games, he had an average depth of target of like 7 yards. And for those that are curious about all the other quarterbacks on this list that are above him, their average depth of target during that time was about 9. So you're talking about like 2 full yards, which is indicative of a guy that's just a lot of time working some of those easier, shorter, quicker routes and getting the ball out of his hands, which sometimes that's what you have to do. So you can't, but when it's 2 full games, you're kind of like, let me see you. And then, he goes a couple of weeks ago. Oh my goodness. Who did they play 2 weeks ago when I was in?
Was that?
It's when you were picking your wife up at the airport.
Was that? Did they play Georgia? No, it wasn't. It wasn't Georgia. No, we're gonna look it up.
Was it? Yeah, look it up.
We're gonna look it up.
That's just what we're gonna do. So Carson, we are so good at this.
Yeah, we're professionals around here.
Hope you guys are having fun. But going into that, he ended up having an average depth of the target in that game of 12. So, like, he ends up pushing the ball downfield. There's some people that have talked about the arm strength and the issues and maybe it being zapped from the elbow injury last year. I definitely think it's not as strong, and you've talked about it. Like, it might not get there. But this version of Carson Beck has been, in my opinion, pretty efficient. Through the first couple of games, he didn't have a turnover-worthy play, and then he threw a couple of picks 2 weeks ago. And the arm isn't quite all the way back, but the thing I loved the most about Carson Beck was I thought in 2023 when he was really good, the way he threw with anticipation. It's doing the pod on the pod, a tradition unlike any other.
Absolutely, Casey.
But I thought, like, you talked about some concerns with other guys that have to see the ball open. I don't think that's an issue or see the wide receiver open. I don't think that's an issue with Carson Beck. I think he throws with great anticipation. I think he reads and diagnoses pretty well. He didn't last year, and that was the problem. And he was awful against pressure last year. He is much better this year. Now, I will also say Miami's got a hell of an offensive line. Like, that is a pretty good offensive line. Either my tackle 1 or tackle 2, I haven't settled, is on that offensive line. I'm not 100% sure, but he's got a good offensive line, all of that sort of stuff. But
my tackle ones on that offensive line. And in the game I think you're referring to that we talked about earlier was against Florida, where he only threw for 160 yards, but he was efficient.
yes. Yeah. And I just think he's a guy that brings you a nice floor, because I think you're starting to see him settle in and throw with anticipation and trust his wide receivers again after he had a horrible year in Georgia last year with like they led the nation in drops, like things like that. He's a little shout out here from Matt on Twitter was saying, "Hey, what's up? What's going on? So how you doing?
Welcome to the show, Matt."
Talking about Dante Moore, Fernando Mendoza, but yeah, Aller to me, there's going to be some limitations. That arm might not get back to where it. Not Aller. Beck for me, there's some limitations with that arm strength and stuff, but I do think he's a good processor. He gets the ball out quickly. I think he throws with great anticipation. It's not going to wow you with physical tools, but his athleticism is up there. A good athleticism for the position. So he's back in my top 10. Well, he was number 10. He moves up a little bit higher. I'm very interested to see how he handles pretty rough schedule going forward.
100%. Yeah. So I think I agree with you. For me, Beck was a 5th, 6th round guy because of how rough it looked. The arm looks zapped. The amount of drops, and I still contest that not all of those drops were on those Georgia receivers. Some of them, he could have done a significantly better job in placing that ball. He doesn't make my top 10, but he's next man up. So, obviously Aller's 10, Cade's 11, Beck is 12. So they're right there. And considering he was probably QB 21 or 22 for me, that is a significant jump for Carson Beck this season.
Just a real quick list here from Matt. This is my list. For those that are just checking in, we're going to be flipping back and forth between me and Bill's list. The one that's on the screen right now is my list. And then the other one that we'll flip through is Bill. But Matt asks about Haynes King, the Georgia Tech quarterback. To me, Haynes King is a college quarterback. He's a really good college quarterback. I'm not sure he's there as a passer, relies a little bit too much on the run, and his run style at the next level, I don't think it holds up. But he's a damn fun college quarterback, like really fun to watch.
He's a fun college quarterback that I think could be a backup spot starter in the NFL. My comp for him is Tyler Thigpen, that big body guy that, you create some packages for, right? And even kind of like a Taysom Hill-esque mold, create some packages, get him on the field in terms of using his running and his arm. But I don't feel confident in his passing style, especially the accuracy in the intermediate and short part of the field, that it lends itself to being a starting QB in the NFL. But absolutely fun to watch. But
Ty Simpson just lists my list as we put Bill's list back up on there. Number 8, I'm looking at this. We're still in number 8, and it's like we might have to pick this pace up a little bit here.
Oh yeah, we'll pick it up. I'm not worried about that. But listen, Ty Simpson is a guy that everybody, even myself, counted out coming into the season. He was the safe veteran option for Alabama. He was just going to be, he was just going to keep the bus on the road. Now, not only has he kept it on the road, he's turned into the bus driver. He's collecting fees for people getting on the bus. You look at this between Louisiana Monroe and Wisconsin, he had more touchdowns than incompletions in those 2 games, including going a perfect 17 for 17 for 3 touchdowns against Louisiana Monroe. This guy, for me, Ty Simpson has just a natural pocket awareness and has probably the highest floor of any quarterback in this class. And if you told me the Browns didn't go QB in round 1, Ty Simpson would be the guy, because you know who my comp is for Ty Simpson?
Hit me.
Kirk Cousins.
Oh, I see it. Yep, I see it. For clarification, I have him at 11. So I did have him very, very close to this list. Oh, that's interesting. Yep. Well, when you think
You think about it, yeah. And for those of you that don't know, they call me the comp king because I bring a comp for every player that I grade and every player that I draft. And the comp is from a size standpoint and a stylistic standpoint, not necessarily from a career arc standpoint, but you watch the way Kirk Cousins works in the pocket, showing impressive accuracy, throwing folks open, has a legit arm. It's not going to be a flamethrower, but a just subtle movements in the pocket, has enough juice in terms of straight line speed. He's not going to be a takeoff guy, but it's got enough. And if you told me that the Browns didn't go QB in round 1 and they wanted to go with a guy in rounds 2 or 3, Ty Simpson could be that guy.
That's interesting. Okay, let's get to Taylor Green. Taylor Green doesn't make my list. He makes your list at number 7, the Arkansas quarterback, for those out there. I need some convincing. With Ty Simpson, I can see it, right? Like he just misses my top 10, but he's flirting with it and could very easily, like, my rankings look a lot different than they did coming out of summer. And Ty Simpson could very well storm up there, especially if Drew Aller and Kate Klubnik like continue to just really struggle. They might drop out of my top 10, and like Ty Simpson probably is the first one that comes up. With Taylor Green, I kind of just see a college quarterback. So I need you to I'm not convinced he's, as a passer, he can make it. Like that, that's that, because I love what he can do with his legs. Like, you give Taylor Green, the Arkansas quarterback, any sliver of green grass, and he can hurt you bad. Like,
yes.
But to me, I'm just a little concerned with some inconsistencies with the way he plays in structure and the way, in some accuracy things, where I'm like, I'm not sure you're going to get away with that throw at the next level. So this is one I was really looking forward to talking to you with, because I'm going to need just a little bit convincing. But tell me why you like Taylor Green from Arkansas.
So listen, Taylor Green from Arkansas is probably the most athletic guy that we're going to talk about today, and has probably the best deep ball that we're going to talk about today. I would say his deep ball is 1A of these guys. But you look, when he made the Feldman Freaks list, and for those that don't know what the Feldman Freaks list is, it is a list of 100 players that are just absolute freaks of athletes. You listen to these numbers, man. Almost 23 miles an hour on GPS. A 43-foot 5-inch triple jumper. So he's got explosiveness. He's got speed. He's got a cannon. This guy can do it all. But the big thing is, he is probably, of the last, I would say probably the last 3 classes, I'm going to lump them all together. He is probably the best quarterback in RPO concepts of the last 3 classes. Just can identify defensive leverage and deliver accurate throws while moving laterally on the run. The problem is, though, is you mentioned it. The mechanics just break down under pressure. He struggles against short and intermediate stuff. Still developing full field progressions. Take some unnecessary hits. I need you to learn how to slide, Taylor. Figure it out, please. But when I look at his game, I see a lot of David Garrard when he was with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Okay.
Big body, big arm, athletic. And David Garrard was never, a top 10 quarterback. He did enough. And I think that's what you would ask Taylor Green to do is, hey, I don't need you to be a top 10, 15 guy. You come in, you do enough, and then we build around you. It's one of those everything has to be perfect type of quarterbacks. But I'm with you. There's some things that in Taylor Green's game that the highlights flash, and then there's some other things in his game that you want to leave on the cutting room floor.
Okay. I like that. I like the comp too. Like I'm like, okay, I like that. Let me see here as we continue to go through. Okay. I want to talk about my quarterback 2, because he's your quarterback 6, and that's John Mateer, who I'm sick that he has this injury and going to miss time. But I will point out that they say he broke the bone in his hand in the first quarter last week, and he had a pretty good game. Like, it was a little bit of a downer. Like, there were some like accuracy things that weren't quite as good as they had been, and like you're like, oh, by the way, he had to have surgery on a broken bone in his hand, and you go, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. For me, with John Mateer at Oklahoma, And I know exactly why we essentially have John Mateer and Aiden Childs flipped. Do you have Aiden Childs from Michigan State at 2? I have him at 6. You have Mateer at 6, and I have Mateer at number 2. But for me with John Mateer, I look at his arm talent, and is what stands out to me. And I say of all the guys in this class, there's only one. I'm looking at the list that I have right here. In my top 10, there's only one that I think challenges John Mateer on just pure arm talent, and that's our quarterback 3, Lenore Sellers. So, and I think he's more developed than Lenore Sellers, and that's why he's at 2 versus Lenore Sellers at number 3. But with John Mateer, he incredible arm talent, really good athlete. I keep going back to that Michigan game when he had 72 rushing yards and like 270 passing yards. It's just like John Mateer, if you are looking for a guy that can put the entire offense on his shoulders and elevate them and drive them to a win, Mateer is that guy. Makes all the throws, really good athlete, bit of a wild man. That is probably the kindest way I can put it, which is why you have him lower, is the wild man status versus what I have. But I look at it the way I looked at Cam Ward last year. And that is, I think the highs are high enough that they outweigh the lows that are low. Like there's some lows, there's some decision making where it's like you shouldn't trust your arm that much. You're like, I don't know what that was a tough one. I think he's gotten a little bit better actually as the season's gone on. With that, I think he's a little bit better than he was, especially at Washington State last year. Very similar to Cam Ward and what happened to him from when he went to Miami after transferring there. But he can do it all, and he's that. I'm not comping him completely because I think Casey says it in the comments. Got a little Favre in him. Yeah, he's got a little. He's got maybe a lot.
Got a lot of Favre in him. Yeah,
there's a lot of Favre in him if we're going to be completely honest about that. Minus the stick picks. Yeah, I was just watching that documentary. If you have not watched that Brett Favre documentary on Netflix, you should watch that. It's wild. But with Mateer, there's something about him that reminds me of Baker Mayfield when Baker was at Oklahoma, but also when Baker, really for his entire NFL career, minus the weirdness that happened to him in Carolina and LA, which is everybody gravitates to him as a leader. And everybody, it fuels him. And Mateer's smaller. I understand the size limitations. And we talked about it before. He had 19 carries against Michigan. He does not have the size to do that. He cannot take that many hits. But I also think it was kind of an Oklahoma problem because they couldn't get the run game going outside of him. So he had to do more. And I think it changes if he goes somewhere where he has a better run game.
Yep.
But they love him. He's a fantastic leader. People gravitate to him. He's a little volatile, but the highs are very high. So John Mateer for me checks in at quarterback 2. But I understand everybody that wants to knock him down and say, oh, maybe he can't do this at the next level because he takes too many risks and he's small. If you do not have him in your top 4, I think you're a little silly. I won't call you crazy. I think you're a little silly if you don't have him in your top 10. But if you don't have him in your top 5 because of the volatility, I completely understand.
Yep, and that's exactly where I'm at number 6, because you look at it between attempts and carries, John Mateer has touched the ball 184 times, and I am sorry, but it's at the size he is, which is 6 foot 205. Man. That you can't do that in the NFL. It's just not sustainable. But everything is there. He's got a gunslinger's mentality. Absolutely just sudden as a runner, right? Just impressive arm talent, but a gunslinger's mentality. And you and I talked about it. Everybody does the comp of Baker Mayfield, right? So I went back into the archives. I pulled up some old tape for this one. Oh boy. My comp for him, and you and I talked about it, was a little known quarterback that went to Alcorn State, ended up going in the top 3 of the NFL draft. Steve McNair. Because you watched McNair's arm talent. You watched how he gambled early in those seasons with Houston and Tennessee, but you watched the suddenness, the violence as a runner. And tell me that Moneyline Mateer doesn't show glimpses of Steve McNair. But for me, he was in my top 5. But the problem is when you throw in the volatility, you throw in the injury to his hand, you throw that all in there, he just slides right out of the top 5 because I have more faith in the other 5 ahead of him.
Yeah, and everybody that says that, I think is justified in saying that. Like, I really do. But for me, I'm just like, a lot of times I'll gamble on traits. I'll gamble on ceilings when it comes to quarterbacks. So I'm willing to take that gamble. Let's see. I want to touch real quick on Garrett Nussmeier at 4 because I don't think there's a lot to say about Garrett Nussmeier. So I think we can speed run through Garrett Nussmeier. He remains at 4 because I think he has a really nice floor. In my opinion, right now, the way Garrett Nussmeier is playing, I see a game manager at the NFL level. And you can live with that because the game manager is a hell of a lot better than what the Cleveland Browns have got going on right now. I'm just
I love it, not me.
I love Joe Flacco, but like Nussmeier, I thought he was going to take another step, and he really hasn't taken that other step. Now he's got some games coming up in the SEC schedule to where he can do it, but Nussmeier checks in at 4 because I think he's a safe bet. If you don't get our quarterback 1, who I think is really good, in Fernando Mendoza, but I just wanted to quick through there. We both have Garrett Nussmeier at 4.
Bingo.
I don't know if you want to add anything, but to me, it's just like he's got a good arm, but he's small. His decision-making and consistency is up and down. Can you win a game because of Garrett Nussmeier? Yes. But is it more often than not going to be winning with Garrett Nussmeier? Yes. And that's so right now for me, he's really good on the mental processing and whatnot. And so to me, I just kind of think he's going to be a game manager at the next level unless I see some more flashes down the stretch.
Bingo. And today's a huge test for Garrett Nussmeier. He goes into Ole Miss today at 3:30 on ABC. That is going to be a huge test for him, probably one of his biggest tests since week 1 in Clemson. But I'm with you. I don't see a guy you can win because of. It's a guy you win with, especially when you look. Yes, he's got an NFL arm, but he's 6 foot flat, 200 pounds. Everything I just talked about, John Mateer size, you got to extrapolate that to Garrett Nussmeier too. He's not going to be the big guy in the pocket.
Yeah. It's just those are the facts. Let's talk about Dante Moore. Real quick. It's really funny. At some point, we'll do a show where we talk about these top quarterbacks more because I think we talked about these fringe guys a little bit longer than we expected today. But we've got a lot of time to talk about these guys. Dante Moore kicks in at number 5 for both of us. What I love about he's one of those guys where I thought to myself, like, I can put Dante Moore higher, but he's got 9 starts. And 5 of them were 2 years ago at UCLA, and they were bad. They just were straight up bad. He transfers to Oregon, sits behind Dylan Gabriel for a year. And can we talk about how Will Stein, the OC for Oregon, needs a head coaching job, please? Like, give this man his due. He's been doing fantastic.
UCLA, make the phone call.
Yeah, anybody. I think Will Stein is going to be a hot commodity after this year if Dante Moore continues to play this way. Dante Moore I love his accuracy and ball placement. Like, I think that it's up there with anybody in this class. It's up there with Fernando Mendoza, who is my quarterback 1, your quarterback 1. And I think that's the best thing about Fernando Mendoza's his ball placement and accuracy. Dante Moore is there. The reason he doesn't jump like a Garrett Nussmeier or anything like that or move up for me is 9 starts. He's a guy I think I prefer a quarterback to have 2 full years of starting experience before they go to the NFL because I just don't think the NFL develops quarterbacks anymore for the most part. It's just they don't give you that chance. And I think you have to go through those growing pains in college. And for Dante Moore, he stays at 5 because, again, I just haven't seen a lot. He's got a test today. He is going to Penn State in primetime to play a wideout. If he looks the way he has looked to start the season, because they haven't really played anybody to start the season, if he looks that way tonight, we got to have conversations about Dante Moore potentially declaring and put himself in the first round conversation, even though it's risky because he doesn't have a lot of experience. And that would worry me mightily. He has looked fantastic, in complete and utter control of that offense. He hasn't been asked to do a lot in certain situations. Like Northwestern, he threw for less than 200 yards. it's a lot of that had to do with like short fields and the run game and explosive plays where it was like, but he's got a good arm, make access all levels of the field. He looks so comfortable. He's accurate. He's got the tools. I just want to see a little bit more from Dante Moore at Oregon. And we're going to get a good test tonight when he plays Penn State.
100%. And the big thing, the reason he sits at 5 for me is like you talked about, 9 career starts. And then you watch that UCLA tape, it was downright atrocious. He went back to back to back games where he threw pick sixes, not just interceptions, pick sixes. And then, obviously that's in Chip Kelly's offense. So then he sits behind Dylan Gabriel, and now he comes out looking like this. The reason he still sits at 5 for me too is the other 4 guys ahead of him, and I'll say my other 3 in Sellers, Childs, and Mendoza are functional athletes as runners. Dante Moore just doesn't have that, he's minimal as a runner, right? But that doesn't mean he's a bad quarterback. My comp for him is a guy that has very good NFL arm talent, very accurate with the deep ball, and has been carving it up in the NFC North. Jared Goff.
He is Jared Goff. He is. I think he's got a little bit better movement skills. I think a little bit.
Yes. A little bit better. But if you look at Jared Goff at Cal and how he kind of moved and how he kind of shifted into the pocket, I'm with you. I think we have to have that conversation. If Dante Moore goes into the whiteout tonight and plays like he's played against some of these other teams like Oklahoma State and Oregon State, we have to have a conversation. Is this a top 3 player in the 2026 class? Not even a top 3 quarterback.
We got to start saying, how much do we care about multi-years of starting experience? Because I care about it a lot, but he might be the exception to the rule if he continues to play at the level he's playing at. We'll touch on Lenore Sellers real quick, and then we'll go to our quarterback 1. And wrap it up there. Lenore Sellers, to me, the South Carolina quarterback, comes into the year as my quarterback 1, as a guy that is incredibly toolsy, but very raw. Like, the combination he has of size, strength, athleticism, and arm talent is stupid. Like, it's just straight up stupid because it's that good, in my opinion.
It's a create a player on Madden stupid. Like, when you go into Madden and you create a road to glory player and sliders are just thrown all the way up on everything, that's what Lenore says.
Yeah, for 100%. But I thought going into the year, I was like, he may need 2 more years. Like, he may need 2 more years because he's 20 years old, and like, he just doesn't love standing in the pocket. Sometimes there's phantom pressure where he thinks there's pressure, but it's not quite there. And he just looks uncomfortable, and the rhythm and timing isn't always there. And I'm like, he just needs seasoning because the tools are there. And the first game, he flashes, he shows all the tools. And then he has a kind of a rough go of it, but he's kind of started to right the ship. Like, I think last week was the best game he had as a passer from the pocket, in my opinion. And he started. So for me, I had started to write him off and say, hey, he's just not going to be a 2026 guy. He's going to be a 2027 guy. I know they lost last week. I know South Carolina lost last week, but Sellers was not the reason they lost last week. It was not. He's got to continue to grow under pressure and continue to grow in structure and just get more comfortable in the pocket. But he is trending that way because when he gets out and runs, there's a lot of Cam Newton, a lot of Josh Allen when it talks about him as a runner, where it's like, he's an athlete. Like, he can juke you, he can run past you, but he's going to lower the shoulder and bring the boom too. So like, and he's got a bazooka. He's got an absolute bazooka. Got to get a little bit more touch in his game on some of those short and intermediate stuff. But he's just raw. He's 20 years old. Like, you're looking at the guy, but he's trending in the right direction again. And some people want to do the Anthony Richardson thing. He is miles more better and more proven than Anthony Richardson was coming out already before this.
Yeah.
And he will be, but he's a guy where if he does come out and things continue to trend the way they are, people are just going to look at him and they're going to say, hey, this is the next Josh Allen, where, oh, he's a little bit raw, but like, the tools are insane and we think we can develop him, but he is trending in the right direction. And if he continues the direction he has the last couple of weeks, he'll be the number one overall pick in my mind. I swear to God, like that is where he's trending. He's got to get more comfortable in the pocket and stuff, but they're going to look at these tools and they're going to say, hey, he's growing, might need a little bit of time, might need to get a bridge veteran in there ahead of him. But like he's flirting with that right now.
100%. And everybody talks about that Anthony Richardson comp. My comp for him is Dante Culpepper. Yeah. And you look at what Culpepper did in Minnesota with Randy Moss and Chris Carter, and that's what you can ask Dante. That's what you can ask Lenore Sellers to do. The biggest concern for me is the deep ball accuracy. It's hit or miss. Sometimes it looks beautiful like a rainbow shot, and sometimes it looks like you couldn't hit the broadside of a barn if you lived in Amish country, and it's rough. But I will tell you this: 2 weeks, October 11th. South Carolina travels to Death Valley to play LSU. That's probably going to be a night game. And that's probably going to be the game where everybody says either Lenoris is here or he's in 2027.
I think that's fair. I think that's really fair. I'll let you kick this off. Let's talk about QB1, and then we will get like a kangaroo armed with a bazooka. That's a pretty good count. I like that.
I love it. So listen, QB1 for me is Fernando Mendoza, and I was high on him coming into the year. He was my QB4 coming into the season, so I was already high on him. But then he just went out and said, okay, bet, hold my beer. And by the way, had 5 touchdowns and 1 incompletion versus Indiana State, 5 touchdowns and 2 incompletions versus Illinois. And again, I talked about it. When I see you play lesser teams like Indiana State and Kennesaw, do you look in command of the offense? Oh, yeah, sure. Let me just drop 245 yards and 4 touchdowns on Kennesaw State. Fernando Mendoza has a completion percentage right now of 75%, and that includes a 54% game against Old Dominion, who then, by the way, Old Dominion's nothing to laugh at because they just went and waxed Virginia Tech a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
He is accurate with the ball. He is precise. He gets the ball where it needs to be. He has enough arm talent to make every throw at the NFL level. He's my QB1 right now would be inside my top 5, my number 5 overall player. Every time I watch his tape, I see Matt Ryan. And if you told me that I could take Matt Ryan in this year's class to quarterback the Cleveland Browns or any NFL team, give me Fernando Mendoza all day and twice on Sunday. I think there's a pretty clear tier of quarterback play, and Mendoza is a step above that tier right now.
For me, there is the one concern I do have with Fernando Mendoza is it wasn't enough to keep him from being my number 1 quarterback. But the one thing I have is I talked about this with Jackson Dart, and I think it's different. I think this is different, but it's a very RPO heavy system that he's running. And so the question becomes like, hey, it's not super complex and there's a lot of like quick answers. But the thing is, I don't think he just locks onto his first read. Like, I think there's a difference between him and Jackson Dart in the way I felt about Jackson Dart in last year's class. And I was lower on him than a lot. But with Mendoza, I think his processor is so quick and so good. Like, he can move off of those first reads. Now, if the first read's open, he's going to deliver it, and the ball placement is going to be fantastic. He's going to do it in such a way which allows his receivers to continue to run, not break stride after they get the ball. I'm very interested because he's got, going into the Big Ten. It's like he goes into number 9 Illinois. Like they hadn't played anybody. They go play number 9 Illinois. And they drop 63 on them, and he has 2 incompletions. And you talked about it. The last 2 games is 3 times as many touchdowns as incompletions. He's got 10 touchdowns and 3 incompletions. And it's like, that's not just a guy that's being carried by an incredibly simple RPO offense. Like if he was completing like 70% of his passes and the average depth of target was 7 yards or whatever, I would say, yeah, there's some concerns. But I have a little bit of a concern about that aspect of it. But I do think that the way he has played overall, I think he's showing you that, like, yeah, he could take on more. That's just the offense that's just the offense they run.
Bingo. And the one final thing I'll also add on Mendoza, one of my biggest concerns for him coming into the season was his ability to get rid of the ball, because at Cal, he took a lot of sacks. There were 4 games last year where he took 6 or more sacks in those games.
Yeah.
He's only gotten sacked 3 times this year. So he's getting rid of the ball. And he's checked that final box that I said, okay, he checks that box, he's QB1, and he's done it.
Yeah, because the biggest concern that the sack to pressure to sack rate at Cal was not good for him, but much better this year. It's just, and I think he's got really nice functional athleticism. Like he's a guy, you can tell like he's not at the NFL level. He's not going to be as productive as a runner, but he's another one of those guys where it's like you're in the red zone. If you clear out, he'll run it in. Like he will run it in. I can see him at the NFL level having like 3 or 4 rushing touchdowns every year where that's the case, where he drops back on 3rd and goal and he just runs it in from the 5-yard line or whatever, or something, one of those kind of things. I love his arm. Like he doesn't have the biggest arm, but I think it's a plus arm. It's a B+ arm. So you can access, he can layer throws, throw it over one defender and down. Like there's a touchdown against, was it the Indiana State one where he throws it over a linebacker who was at the goal line and then just drops it in a bucket to his wide receiver right in front of the goalpost?
I think he did one at Indiana State and one in Illinois too in the first quarter.
Stupid throws. Like he has made some throws that I'm just like, that's insane. I think he could. I want to see it against better competition because he really has not played a ton of good competition, but he is going to. But right now, accuracy, timing, again, a guy that's in complete control. I love guys that are in complete control of that offense. He knows where his playmakers are, knows how to get the ball to them in the right time, right space. And I'm excited to see Fernando Mendoza. So real quick, we're going to do it one more time. Bill, from 10-1, your top 10 quarterbacks right now for the 26th draft.
Yeah, so number 10, Drew Aller from Penn State. Number 9, Jaden Mayava, USC. Number 8, Ty Simpson, Alabama. Number 7, Taylon Green from Arkansas. Number 6, John Moneyline Mateer from Oklahoma. Number 5, Dante Moore from Oregon. Number 4, Garrett the Nuss Bus Nussmeyer from LSU. Number 3, Lenora Sellers from South Carolina. Number 2, Aiden Childs from Michigan State. And number 1, the Cuban Missile Crisis himself, Fernando Mendoza from Indiana.
It's just so funny that you throw some nicknames out there, and even I've dropped Moneyline Mateer because you said it to me so many times that
Hey, it's better than Mr. Venmo betting. Okay, we'll just go with the Moneyline Mateer and we'll call it a night.
We don't talk about that. My list from 10-1. I got Cade Klubnik from Clemson at number 10, Jaden Mayava from USC at 9, Carson Beck from Miami at 8. Drew Aller comes in at 7 from Penn State. Aiden Childs, the Michigan State quarterback, at 6. Dante Moore, the Oregon quarterback, at 5. At 4, Garrett Nussmeyer from LSU. At number 3, Lenore Sellers from South Carolina. Number 2, John Mateer. I almost said Moneyline Mateer from Oklahoma. And number 1, Fernando Mendoza. Guys, we appreciate you so much. We're going to have a couple of draft episodes a week. We'll have this live show every Saturday at 10 o'clock. I think it's coming in a couple of weeks. I think in a couple of weeks, we're going to get a mock draft and pay some bills. I don't know if the mock draft's going to be live. It might be. We're going to do we're going to record an episode on Saturday nights, like as things are wrapping up, and we can talk about some of the stuff that happens that day. That'll probably drop on Monday mornings. That might end up being when we do the mock draft. We'll see. I don't know, but we're going to play around with we'll do some more rankings as we go through here, but we'll also do some stock up, stock down, some things like that as we miss going forward. Appreciate you guys so very, very much. Please hit that subscribe button, that like button. We will see you guys again next time. Have a great weekend.
Peace.